Have you heard that you should be tracking your data as an entrepreneur? But when you start to dive into what that data might mean for your business, you get overwhelmed and then you say, I'm going to do that later. Me too, so many times. And I love numbers. I know how essential tracking your data and understanding your metrics is because marketing isn't really an emotional game. It is looking at the data to understand what we need to dial up or scale back and change. And it provides so much freedom as an entrepreneur when you know what you're looking at. So I thought it would be really great to have an episode here on the Authentic Brand Builders podcast with my friend Allie, who is a data strategist. She's a marketer by trade, and she helps entrepreneurs understand and track the data in their business. Allie and I had a whole nerd out session about marketing and data, as usual with my guest. And Allie did a phenomenal job. Like, this is seriously a masterclass for you in how to get started tracking data. I encouraged her to break it down and help entrepreneurs at different stages of the process. So we dive into her signature framework and how do you find which data to track for you? Just a few key metrics that can make a difference. How do you understand what's working and what's not working? As well as this crazy idea of UTMs. Don't worry, we're going to talk about it in today's episode. Allie is the founder of Akari Digital, where she helps entrepreneurs that are track and understand their data. And today's episode is all about helping you create authentic metrics in your business. Let's get into today's episode.
This is the Authentic Brand Builders Podcast with Michelle Knight.
Allie, I'm so excited that you're joining me so we can nerd out all about data today.
Thank you so much for having me. I am so excited to nerd out with you. I love it when I get on calls with people and they're like, tell me about data. Like, let's go.
Yeah, people listening are probably like, okay, weirdos. Like, what's wrong with you? But I knew the second we met each other in our mixer mind that I wanted to have you on the podcast just because I love your energy and I'm excited. It's kind of selfish, honestly, because I just want to get to know you. And I was like, well, let's just record it because I'm sure it'll be valuable as well.
Well, the feeling is mutual.
Well, then we're going to jump into numbers. We're going to jump into data, and we have so much good stuff for entrepreneurs. But as always, I would love to kick it off with just hearing more about your story and kind of your journey to becoming an entrepreneur.
Yeah, well, I think like many folks, I worked in corporate for many years and just kind of hit my point where I was frustrated with the politics. I worked in a very large organization. There were so many levels of different things and different levels of hierarchy. And it was frustrating and overwhelming that I felt like I couldn't make the smart decisions that I knew were the right smart decisions because there was somebody else that was like, no, we want to do it this way. I was just frustrated. And a series of events all just kind of happened and unfolded. And I started freelancing just so I could put in my notice and be like, until the next job comes around. And within maybe like 3 months of freelancing, I was like, wait, why am I looking for another job? This is literally like exactly everything that I've wanted. And so, yeah, like in my corporate work, I was a marketing manager. I oversaw kind of a team of ad strategists and social media folk and copywriters and web designers. Like I was very much like the person keeping all the things together, and data was a big part of how I made sure that we were all working towards the same goal. And as I was freelancing and just kind of stepping in as a jack of all trades marketer for all these different businesses, I was like, nobody is using this. And it didn't make sense to me because it was always a huge part of my business. But that was such a cool like light bulb moment for me of, oh, this is something that people don't know about. I can help people do this and make smarter decisions for their business. And 5 years later, here we are.
Yeah. Well, and I think about this too when I'm like, see your reels come across and your Instagram posts, something you definitely fill a gap in the market because, I talk about data on the back end of a lot of my business coaching, my business strategy, but you're very much a data analyst and really helping people make these smart decisions. And it's needed it's really needed.
Well, yeah, like lots of folks will tell you to check the data and tell you to look at the numbers, and there aren't as many people that show you how. And that's just the flaw of it's easy for us to look at our own business and look at our own numbers, whether that's our finances or whether that's our marketing data or our sales data or some other kind of numbers you're looking at. It's easier for us to look at it on our own and make sense of it versus teaching this as a skill of like, how do we help our folks learn how to do this or teach other people how to do this? That is like a totally different world. And so it's a gap that I'm very excited to be working in because it's what lights me up.
Yeah. Well, and the conversation of data, we were kind of talking before, and I joke I should record those because they're just great little like nuggets. But we were talking before about how it's really easy to see entrepreneurs who are maybe further along than us. For me, I'm a 6-figure business owner. I haven't hit 7 figures in a year. And sometimes I'll see 7-figure business owners talk about a 500K launch and break down all the metrics. And even I get overwhelmed, and I love data. So I know what my clients go through at like the newer level. And it's really hard to kind of determine, or at least until this episode, I imagine, what data we should be tracking for ourselves versus what the like standard data someone else might be tracking.
Totally. If you are listening to somebody debrief a launch or debrief their numbers for the year, if they're at that stage of business, they've probably got 100 metrics that they're looking at and they're tracking and they're analyzing. And that is great for them. And at a certain point, like, do I do that for a lot of my clients? Yes, we do. But I don't think every single business needs to do that. If that is going to put you in fight, flight, or freeze, I would rather you pick 8 to 10 metrics. And this is a big part of, I know what we're going to talk about today is like those, but that's a big part of my methodology that if you are just getting started, every single marketing system you talk to, like you give me any business and I'll ask some questions and I can give you 8 to 10, maybe 12 metrics that will tell you how your marketing is performing. And if you are just tracking those 8 to 12 metrics every single month or quarter and looking to see where they are, you can at least tell yourself, I should be spending more time and energy here in my marketing versus over there. A thing that I often hear from people is that they think with their marketing, it feels like they're throwing spaghetti at the wall. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
if you're tracking these 8 to 10, you're at least going to be throwing spaghetti at the right wall. And that is better than like 80% of the businesses that I talk to. And that's huge. Are you going to be tracking all the things and like getting all the detailed little insights of these 500K launches? No, but that's okay. That's not where we're at right now. Let's throw spaghetti at the right wall. And once we're comfortable with that, then we can step in and, figure out which type of spaghetti am I going to throw or dig a little
I
bit
like
deeper.
it. Yeah. Well, this is so crazy because I did an episode not too long ago where I was kind of talking about like really measuring the ROI, like things I would have done that first year. I thought, for me, my audience knows how I feel about social media. So I was showing up on social media, I was doing the things. But then when I really looked at it, like video marketing converts the best for me. So why would I spend if I had limited time, why would I be spending all this time just to post on Instagram? To just throw spaghetti at it, essentially, when I could be spending that time making a video that I knew was ultimately going to perform better for me. And so that to me is really how you create an authentic marketing strategy. Like, where do you want to show up? And then what is the data actually telling you is working for your business?
Yes, absolutely. And that kind of the way that I look and think about it is super similar in that different people, like I have different strengths in how I want to market and promote my business. You have different ones. The next business over is going to have a different one. And we need to identify for us like what feels good and makes sense for us and is in alignment with how we want to market. And we need to pair that with what's going to make the difference for our business. And we need both of those. We can't, a kind of mistake or something that people can fall into is that we always lean into the stuff that feels good, which I love to an extent, but this is kind of segueing into the 10 metrics that we want to track. When I break down how to track a different business, it'll break down into you have different marketing activities that are going to help you do 4 different things. They're going to help you reach new people. They're going to help you nurture and build trust connection with your audience. They're going to help you convert people into sales. And then they're going to help you retain, upsell, like get the people that already worked with you to work with you longer, again, whatever that looks like. And often when we just lean into the things that feel comfortable with us, there's going to be one or two of those four things that come more naturally or feel easier for you.
Mm-hmm.
And so great, you've got those dialed, but then let's make sure that we also know from the data which one of those we might not be as strong at, and make sure that we're intentional about doing those things. Or maybe we set up an automated system so that it's not something that requires you to show up every single day or week in your business. For example, like the example that you throw out is social. Social can be really great at reach if you really want to put your all into it, but typically it's more of a like nurture and like build trust kind of platform. That's
Yeah.
exhausting for you. You can also do that with email. You can also do that with a whole bunch of other different platforms. We just need to pick which ones work well for you, but then pair that to make sure if you hate social, then just find a different way to do that nurture activity.
Ooh, yes. Okay. I feel like you like have like been a fly on the wall while I make YouTube videos and talk to my clients, because I always say every marketing strategy works, but you have to find the one that works for you.
Yes.
Otherwise, you're not going to do it. Okay. So how do we figure that out from a data perspective? Because we've teased it now and I feel like we just have to get into it.
Yeah.
I know you want to share more about your framework that ultimately helps business owners identify 5 to 10, maybe 12 metrics for them to start tracking. So take it away. How do we do it?
So going back to those kind of 4 different marketing systems is what I call them for
Mm-hmm.
reach, nurture, convert, and retain. Each of those systems will have 2 or 3 metrics that you care most about. And so my 8 to 10 metrics are going to be a little bit different than yours, because how I reach people might be a little bit different than how you reach people versus nurture, convert, retain, etc. But every single business can figure out what is the first thing that somebody does when I reach them, what is the last thing, and then maybe there's a step in the middle that we care about. So let's walk through an example of like a photography
Mm-hmm.
business. So a photographer, let's say that this photographer is promoting primarily with SEO and like referrals. For both of those, how they're reaching people is they're going to get people onto their website. Great. Metric number 1, how many people arrived on my website? And that might include a blog for their SEO blog or whatever that looks like, but metric number 1, website. And then the last thing within reach that I'd want to look at is, are they taking what is kind of like the next step to say, ooh, I want more from this person. So, okay, they landed on our website, but if they're going to show me that they want a little bit more, maybe it's that they went and looked at my like core website, my like homepage, about page, services, like something that's like, okay, I'm going to go peek around and check out this person.
Mm-hmm.
So then that's our metric number 3, kind of our like last one. Is there something in the middle for this one? Probably not. So we've only got 2 metrics that we care about in reach. Then we look at how are they nurturing and building trust? Is that on Instagram that they feel super lit up by showing up on Instagram every single day, week, whatever? Okay, great, that can be on Instagram. Or is it that, hey, sign up for my newsletter and I give you updates or discounts or whatever sort of value you do? Make sure that there's something in there. Are people signing up, and are they engaging? That the KPI might be within the first 90 days of somebody being on my list, they click a link.
Mm-hmm.
Some sort of like simple KPI, or even just that they stay subscribed after 90 days or something.
Right. They don't leave. Yeah.
Something simple of like, okay, they've joined my list and they're hanging around. When we get into conversion, these ones are typically a little bit more similar business to business. Did they see a sales page, a services page, a work with me page? Did they buy the thing, submit an inquiry, like do something along those lines? Did they like want to work with you? And this is one where often there's like a middle step that we want to track of, if I'm a photographer, my step 1 might be they looked at a services page. My step 2 might be that they submitted an inquiry form. My step 3 is that they said, yes, here's my money. Let's work together. Or if it's more of an e-commerce situation, saw a product page, added to cart, checked out, like purchased. And then retention looks like, for a photographer, like let's say that it's like like a family photographer, so they booked one session with you. Did they book another one next year? Or if I'm a hairstylist, did they book their first appointment with you? How many people actually booked a second appointment within
Mm-hmm.
6 months or whatever your time period is that you'd want them to book? And so we're just summarizing this down to really simple metrics that ideally we have automated and pulling in the back end, which is a little bit of a setup one time, but then it's all there and accessible. And then every single month is typically what I recommend. But if that's overwhelming, once a quarter is also totally fine. We go through, we pull these simple numbers, and we're able to say, oh, within the last quarter, I'm reaching way more people, but I'm not seeing the same increase or like any increase in my conversion. Okay, that's where I need to focus. And instead of us feeling like, oh my gosh, I need to be reaching more people, I need to be doing more collabs, and I need to be running ads, and I need to be doing all of this stuff. It's like, no, okay, the problem is right here. So is it my emails that I'm not sending people to my sales pages? Is it that people are getting to the sales pages, but they're not buying? Okay, maybe I need to look at the copy. Maybe I need to look at the design. Like, we just narrow our focus, and it kind of like quiets the noise of all of these shoulds that people will say and helps us identify what actually matters. Okay, there's my rant.
Oh, it's so good. I have so many things to say. I have like comments and also so many questions. That was so great. And I love that you focused, felt to me, on organic metrics. And I think that that's really important because we hear a lot from people who are running ads, and that sometimes can have a much faster, like, see your content, make a purchase. And sometimes we hear those metrics and we think that they apply to us when we're running an organic strategy, but sometimes, like you said, there can be a lot of steps in between. So thank you for saying that, because I think a lot of people are like, no one bought from me and they were on my website yesterday. And it's like, all right, well, let's break it down, which is another follow-up question that I have. I think there's a lot of freedom in tracking the data because we can get really overwhelmed and feel like nothing is working.
Mhm.
When really, like you said, it's pinpointing these small little things to put our energy toward and just fix that piece. So I guess one of my questions for you is, and maybe this is, more specific numbers, but like, how do you know if something is working or isn't working?
Well, it all comes down to making a hypothesis, and like the data isn't answers. Data is information that can validate or invalidate a hypothesis that you have, is more of like a technical sciencey jargon if we take us back to like 8th grade science class. But
Mhm.
so the first thing that I always ask people is, data will tell you if something is actually happening the way that you thought it should. So we need to go into that conversation to say, okay, so many people came to my website and nobody bought. Okay, what steps would you expect them to take when they came to your website? Then let's use the data to figure out, did that happen? So if so many people came to my website, then the next question that I would ask is, and how many of those people got to your sales page or services page, wherever it is that they are showing some sort of intent to want to work with you or buy from you? Okay, what percent made it there? Did they all drop off on the homepage? Because then that can narrow it down. For me, it all just comes down to, we talk a lot in marketing about like customer journeys or like funnels or like whatever word you use to describe the different steps between a purchase. Within every step, there's always another set of steps. So we just got to keep
Mhm.
breaking it down further and further and further. And even on a specific sales page, if then we're like, okay, all these people got to the sales page or the service page and none of them bought. Okay, did they scroll and be below the fold? Did they stay for at least like 10 seconds to say, yeah, I'm kind of interested in what's here? Did they get all the way to the offer section, or did they start seeing a bunch of content that didn't resonate with them and then they bounced? We can always break things down further and further. And then to kind of, I guess, because I didn't necessarily answer your question of how do we know if it's working? That's the hardest part of
Yeah.
what numbers do we aim for? And it totally depends. And I hate benchmarks of saying your sales pages should convert at 3%, because I know some really successful businesses that their sales pages convert at 1%, and that's fine. It depends on so many factors, and there's so much context about, is this a warm audience? Is it a cold audience? How like essential is this thing? Is this something that is going to change their life tomorrow, or is this something that they want but they need like there's just so many different factors. So the only benchmarks that I care about are your own benchmarks. I want,
Mm-hmm.
how well did this convert last month, last quarter? Is it converting the same or better? And then it's always just running different like experiments of, okay, if I change these things, what impact do I think that will have? And you might be guesstimating a little bit in the beginning of, can that increase this by 1%? Maybe. Let's try it and see.
Yeah, I mean, even just as simple as changing the color of a button can change your conversion rate. And so it really is so much experimenting, but having that core foundation, like you said, your metrics to go off on is so powerful. And one thing I'd love to chat about, and then maybe this is us just like, is the whole like, what are the benchmarks? And I think you mentioned 3%. Great. So many entrepreneurs in their head think it's like 75 to 50%, right? They're like, I had 4 people on my sales page. I didn't make any sales. And then, if I get a chance to chat one-on-one with them, I'm like, you didn't have enough eyes on the page because you're looking at 1 to 3. Those were great benchmarks. You know what I mean? They're very standard. And having this data allows you to like step away and be like, I just need more eyes on my sales page,
Yeah.
right? Like now you know what you need to do.
Yeah. Well, and also when we look at, again, if we think back to grade 8 science, like statistical significance was a thing that we talked about. And I won't get into like the jargony bit of it, but if you had 4 people on your sales page, that's not a big enough sample size for us to know if this was actually working or not.
Mm-hmm.
We need typically like, again, there's so much like context and nuance in these things that we're throwing out here. But if I'm analyzing a sales page for a client, I typically want like 300 people on it before I tell you this converted at X%.
Mm-hmm.
If we hit 100 people and the conversions are 0, I'm probably going to do some analysis, and like if it's like really bad, we'll know sooner. But we need like enough eyeballs, and that just might mean that your testing period is longer. And that's also okay. If you're with smaller numbers, it's just going to take longer to run your tests and experiments. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, and this brings up a really great point that I think a lot of entrepreneurs miss out on is traffic really is everything. Like in order for you to track the metrics and know what's working and what's not working, you have to have enough eyeballs on the thing. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs like, well, I have the sales page, and I know I fell into this trap in my first year. I have the sales page, I have the brand, I'm posting on social media. Like, why isn't anyone buying? It's because I wasn't doing enough at the top of the funnel to get it in front of enough people to hit those, whatever those metrics specifically are. And again, it almost makes me feel less guilty. Like I'm almost like, oh, I don't suck.
Yeah.
Like I don't have a horrible offer. I just need to show up more. And I personally enjoy that feeling. So like I said, it's freedom. There's a lot of freedom in the numbers.
Totally. And that's like if you're tracking it, and if you get through, you have your 10 numbers and you're plugging them into a spreadsheet every single month, and you're looking and you're seeing, oh, there's not that many people here, then that just says, cool, spotlight, focus, reach, get in front of more people. That's where you want to focus. Whatever marketing time that you're investing in your business this month or this quarter, have it be on stuff that's going to get you more eyeballs. Don't finagle with your services or with your sales page of different headlines and different button colors and all of that. That doesn't matter right now. Just focus on getting more people.
Right, because no one's seeing it. Like you don't have the data,
Yeah.
right? Like, yes. So I know that you are gifting a free KPI tracker to all of our listeners, which is incredible. So anyone who's like, I don't know what any of this means, like, don't worry, we have a free download. It's gonna be fine. But let's talk a little bit about marketing, because that is a huge thing we talk about. I always say my background is branding, and we focus a great deal on branding. I say branding is emotional, marketing is not emotional. You just need to look at the data. If someone has a podcast and a YouTube and a blog and they're showing up on social media, what are some things for them to maybe look at to see which is producing the greatest ROI when it comes not just to sales, but also the time that they're putting into that activity.
Yeah. So thinking of each of your different platforms, I want you, like, you'll sense there's a theme here. I want you to pick 3 or 2 KPIs that can determine the value of like what that is offering for you. And you don't need to think of it in the like numbers and the specific metric names, but if we take YouTube, for instance, so I'm creating all this YouTube content. Great. What do I want people to do when they come to my YouTube or they see my video? So KPI number 1 is probably how many people watched my video or videos this month or this quarter. And then the last KPI, what do I ultimately want them to do? I probably want them to go to my website and to download something like my freebie or maybe an inquiry, whatever kind of you care most about. So then you need to find a way to track both of those things. And the middle step, I guess, in the middle would be that they went to the website. The third step being they did whatever I wanted them to do on the website. And this is where we kind of then move into not all of this is going to be tracking automatically. And there are some things that you need to be setting up. So let's talk about what some of these basic things are that I would recommend every entrepreneur, regardless of how early stages you are to how advanced, the kind of things that you need to be tracking is your Google Analytics and UTMs, which categorize your traffic as it comes into Google Analytics. So Google Analytics is a free tool offered by Google. I'm sure many people have heard of it and maybe even have it. It's relatively simple to connect to your website. It is a little bit more complicated to get it to track things like, did people sign up for a freebie? Did they join my newsletter list? Did they add to cart, buy, inquire? Those don't track automatically. That's like an additional step. That's part of what I do is I teach people how to do this for themselves, or they can pay me to set it up for them. And then, so that's kind of number 1 that I would say, if you're going to invest a little bit of time or money in having this data tracking in the back end, Google Analytics should be number 1. The second thing that I really care or that I'd really recommend looking into is starting to use UTM tags, which might sound scary. It might sound a little bit intimidating.
I hate UTMs, and that is dreadful for me as a business owner. So anyone else listening to this is like, I tried it, I hate it. Like, maybe we all just need to hire Allie because it's a pain in my butt, but continue.
I'm in the process of putting together a like builder and a system that make them way easier, because they're actually quite simple once you know what to do, but knowing which things to put on each link and how it all works, I totally understand that it's a little bit of a what the heck is going on here moment. So there is something that I'm in the works of to try and make that easier. But even if all you're doing with UTMs at this point is making sure that your email traffic has an appropriate link, that your, it's emails that are kind of the most often not categorized correctly ones. If you are running ads, those typically get bundled into your organic stuff. So we want to tag ads. Otherwise, YouTube will automatically tag. Most of your social stuff will automatically tag. As long as you have Google Analytics, that'll show up in the back end of your system. I will say, though, finding out in Google Analytics where your traffic is coming from and what's converting, Google Analytics makes that so hard. It makes it so hard.
I hate it.
I do have actually a dashboard that maybe I'll throw this in as like a bonus kind of gift for your audience that makes this way easier. So for a lot of the clients that I work with, we build out dashboards in Looker Studio, which is a free Google product. It just kind of takes our data and puts it into charts and visualizations that make it pretty and easy. And I have kind of a basic one that I include in a lot of my like tiny offers and whatnot, and I'm happy to gift that to your audience as well.
Yeah.
And then it pretty much just, then it connects into your Google Analytics data, and then it makes it so much easier if you have events tracking that it'll say traffic from YouTube drove you this many email subscribers, traffic from YouTube drove this many purchases, which I don't know why Google Analytics makes that so much harder for us to find in their like native reporting system. I hate going in there, and I have spent thousands of hours in that platform over the years.
I'm so glad I'm not the only one because my clients will ask me like, "What do I need to do in Google Analytics?" And I'm like, "Stay out of there." Just like it's dreadful. You're gonna get so overwhelmed. But to your point, there are so many like resources that people have built, yourself included, that's gonna make that process easier. Why Google, one of the top tech companies in the world, hasn't figured out how to streamline that, we will never know.
It's almost like I feel like they almost want to gatekeep it a little bit and want to make it hard. And it frustrates me.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you're not alone. Okay, so we share that for sure. But I think that this whole concept of UTMs is it honestly, it's something that I avoided for so long. I think just because of the overwhelm of Google Analytics, but it makes such a big difference to know where your efforts, how your efforts are ultimately paying off. And like you mentioned, subscribers. I always say that's like the first investment someone makes into your business. So you might not be able to at this moment to say, oh, YouTube has brought me $1,000 in sales, but to be able to say, wow, YouTube got me 200 subscribers, and then to be able to track that later on when they buy in the customer journey is the sweet spot. And it lets you know that, oh, even though my YouTube channel, my video maybe only gets like 100 views, I'm still making money off 100 views. And that for me is like, that's the stuff I love.
Yeah.
Not the vanity metrics of like, I had a YouTube video go viral.
Oh, totally. And I will say, like, of all of the auditing that I've done in different businesses, especially those businesses that are spending a lot of time in a bunch of different places, the first thing we always do is identify where can we pull back from. And I will tell, like, obviously I can't run the numbers in my head right now, but my estimate would be 85 to 90% of the time, the place that they're spending the most time and energy is the place that's doing the least for them. It like seems to always be the thing that, oh, those blog posts that you wrote 3 years ago and you haven't touched, those are what's bringing you your leads. Whereas you showing up on Instagram every single day is not actually doing anything for your leads, your bottom line for any, like, is not providing any results.
And how freeing to be able to remove things that aren't working to give you more time, whether you're just going to take that as like time to breathe, or you can then put that time towards the thing that is working and like double, maybe even triple the results that you're getting from that platform.
Yeah, totally. Totally. It's so important, I think, for us to have these numbers to know so that we can have the opportunity to say, I don't want to do this anymore. It's not doing anything for my business right now. Let's take a step away and focus somewhere else. And the other thing that I probably want to add in here is one thing that I get from people a lot is, okay, yeah, that sounds great, but I'm going to wait until I like actually have stuff in place for me to start to track. Data tracking is not retroactive. If you are if you are spending any time or any money in any marketing activity, you want your data tracking today or tracking yesterday so that even if you're not going to look at it for another 3 months, 6 months, year, then you have a year of data to look back on to see what actually happened. If you plan to set it up in 6 months, which if they're an entrepreneur like me, when I say 6 months, I actually mean like 12 months, then then I'm not going to have that information to actually make decisions. Take the time to set it up now. Even if you don't look at it right away, that's fine. When you pick it up, it'll be ready for you to analyze.
And like we said, you are giving them a free KPI tracker. So all they really need to do is just like put the data in. And for all my listeners, they know how adamant I am about like an admin day. So your admin day, when you're looking at your dollar bills, and you're looking at your subscribers, that's when you do your KPI work, whether it's weekly or monthly, whatever that looks like for you. But you've said monthly quite a few times, which honestly, woo, I love that. It's great. Take that weight off your chest that you have to do it every 3 days, like a lot of entrepreneurs talk about. And again, it's about knowing where your business is compared to like what you're hearing online in the market. And are they generating more traffic? Are they generating more revenue? Do they have a team? Like probably they're not the ones in their tracking. So start simple is what I'm hearing from you. Identify the metrics that matter most to you, and then measure off your own metrics, not somebody else's.
Yeah. Step one, like you can, with the tools that we have available, most of them have some sort of built-in data. If all you can do today is grab the KPI tracker and fill it out with the data that's already accessible to you, do that. you're not setting up anything new, you're just filling it out, that is a fantastic step one. Step two, if you're like, okay, I want to be more strategic in the future, go ahead and set up Google Analytics. Number one priority. Number two, dabble your way into a little bit of UTMs, even like really simple, really basic ones. And then that's going to make your data tracking even more impactful. And once you get there, that is further than most early stage businesses ever get. And that's going to make your marketing decisions so much more impactful already. You can dive deeper and get more technical after that, but that's the first, second, third early steps to take.
And you made a reel not too long ago, maybe just a couple of days ago, and it was the message was all about, hey, you don't actually want to burn your business down. You just need to start tracking your data. And I saw that, I chuckled, I cried a little bit, because I have been there so many times where I'm like, nothing's working, everything sucks, nobody wants my freebie. But then when I look at the data, I can easily pinpoint what's happening. So it really helps us in that emotional roller coaster of entrepreneurship as well.
Yeah. Well, and like I can kind of, on a personal story from my end, I'm trying new things in my business right now. I'm running ads for the first time, which I know you said you talk mostly organic, totally fine. I've done organic for however many years. I'm like, let's try this new thing and see how it goes. And I am not getting the ROI that I wanted to. I'm 1 week into it. It's early and I know this, but I'm not getting the ROI that I wanted to. But instead of me being like, ads don't work for my business, I hate this, pulling it all back, I looked at it and I'm like, okay, are the ads getting seen? Yes. Are the ads getting clicked on? Yes. They're landing on the landing page. Oh, they're not scrolling. They're not seeing. There's something wrong with this landing page. Yesterday, I went through, made a whole bunch of tweaks to the above the fold section of the landing page. Now I'm continuing to run them for a little bit, and then we're going to see what happens. But instead of me getting all freaked out and panicked that this isn't working and this is all going to go and ruin my business and it's going to be terrible, it's like, no, okay, identified problem, experimented to hopefully fix the problem. We'll see what happens. And
yeah,
I'll
time will tell.
testing as we go. Like, I know that I can make ads work for my business if I want to. I just need to figure out what's the right way to have this message land.
Oh, thanks for that real life example, because I think that's always helpful to just like hear like what you did. One thing you've mentioned a few times is seeing where people drop off on a page. Is there a specific software that you personally like to use or recommend to your clients to get that type of data?
So I do all of mine in Google Analytics. I've set up events that track how far people scroll, how long they stay on a page, because when I'm doing this analysis at scale, I want that data to be in numbers and to be all in one place. But again, that is not tracked automatically in Google Analytics. It involves you doing like a setup, kind of the way that I teach them to be done to track that. And if that's not something that somebody's ready to figure out at this point, totally fine. Microsoft Clarity or Hotjar or like any of those heat mapping tools are fantastic. Microsoft Clarity is free, whereas a lot of them are paid. So I love Microsoft Clarity. It's a good one to start using. And that can, if you install that, it'll give you heat maps so you can see how far people scroll. And then it also often takes like recordings so you can see, are people sticking around at the top or doing whatever? Again, it's not, you're looking at kind of one by one typically. So it's at scale, it's a little bit harder to do an in-depth analysis. But for people getting started and wanting to get a little bit of a basis, throw that up on your page. It's a script that you paste into your header. It takes 3 minutes and you'll have a little bit more information to figure out what's going wrong on that page.
Yeah, then you can become like me and just watch people on your page and see where they go.
Totally.
I'm always like, what are you doing? What are you doing there? No, don't do that. It's a waste of time. But I'm always like, ooh, is this working? Is it not? But that's such an amazing tool. And I don't think a lot of people know that is available to them. So I love that you shared that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
It's an easy one to get started with.
This was fantastic. Oh my gosh, this was so good. You have motivated me to even do better over here. And I have always like feel like I do a decent job, but this was such great data. And the way that you broke it down, it doesn't feel overwhelming, I don't think. So I hope that that's true for our listeners as well. Now, I know you've got the free KPI tracker, which is amazing. We're going to link that in the show notes, and then we'll also link it below the YouTube video if you're watching directly on YouTube. Is there anything else that you would like to add to kind of wrap up this episode as it pertains to, data and tracking your metrics?
I think just the overall message of wherever you're at right now is totally okay. And there's no pressure to become a fully data-backed business in overnight or in a month. Take wherever you're at now and go one step further. And that's exactly where you need to be and exactly where you're supposed to be. And that's totally fine. There's no pressure to reinvent your business just because now you've learned something new.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to take a ton of time. I think a lot of people are like, oh, it's going to take me so much time to do this. It's going to take a little bit of time, but all good things do. You've set us up for success with the tracker. But think about, again, the freedom that it's going to provide you to really know what's working in your business. Ooh, this was so good. Okay, if people are like me and, met you for the first time and then want to go stalk you on the internet, where can people find you, Allie?
I am most active on Instagram. So Akari Digital, Akari Digital is where you'll find me. My website is akaridigital.ca. I will put all of the kind of resources that we talked about today on akaridigital.ca/start is kind of the place that they can go and find them if they're not wanting to go to the show notes and click. That's where you can find it all.
Great.
But yeah, this was super fun and I'm so grateful for you having me.
Thank you. I might have to have you back again so we can talk like advanced analytics. That would be fun.
Would love
Yay.
it.
Well, thank you so much for all of your wealth of knowledge. I am so excited for everyone to tune in and get started with becoming better marketers by looking at the data. So thank you again for taking time today.
You're most welcome.